Welcome back to the
I wonder
desk.
what his star sign is.
Welcome back to the desk where the points don't matter and the one that doesn't have points, it's not matter. So Riddle versus MNM. We're focusing on the top side in an interview. Might as well look into the top side as well. But for the other sides, a top laner that nobody talked a lot about, but he has the highest damage percentage so far in the league.
And you know, we have brought up Calum a couple of times on broadcast because we had this kind of suspicion of like, actually, you know, this team's struggling, but Calum's getting a lot of work done. We pointed out the gangplank as well. And when you look at that damage percentage, that obviously comes across really, really well. I believe we actually have a lot of other stats in the particular top lane matchup between the two top laners we have here as well. And I think there's some really interesting conclusions to be drawn because we know that Jaxplank has been a primary win condition for Riddle. On the other side, Calum has typically been facilitating in the team fights, playing stuff like that gangplank. But I have a history with statistics. I actually in fact, went to uni to do a degree in physics. I have a degree in physics. That meant a lot of numbers handling, and there's a lot to be interpreted from this. Because I have a sneaking suspicion, even though the damage percentage of Jaxplank is lower than Calum's, I reckon that's because when he is on a side lane 1v1 champion, everyone avoids him so he doesn't have a chance to deal damage. There's a lot of ways you can interpret those stats, but it does tell how important both these top laners have been for their teams.
I feel like with what is a rags to riches story, or is trying to be for MNM, for me, Calum, the slumdog millionaire of MNM, because Calum, you are the reason that we still believe. And he has to really be
I
that.
understood that reference because it sounded really slick.
Slumdog Millionaire, man. Come on, be cultured. Danny Boyle, great film. Anyway.
I can't win quizzes. I can't be cultured. What's happening here?
I don't know, to be honest with you. But
I'll let you know. Well, it's Champion Select that is going to start right now as we're talking about this. You want to know what's happening? There you go, Champion Select. So are you going to focus more on the top side or the bot side? Because it's Mishigu as well.
So I think in this matchup, particularly because it's just the way that Riddle have drafted towards, it has always been about preferential 1v1 matchup for Jaxplank. I think we always have to see what's happening towards that top lane. I think at this point, Riddle have shown they have enough champions that they can't have that removed from them. They have a lot of fallback champions. Now, JDXL took the other approach and said, sure, you want to go for a volatile 1v1 matchup, we'll also pick something like that, and we'll just put more attention there early rather than leaving it on an island.
for me, it's a case of, you know, riddle me this, riddle me that, who's afraid of the big broken cat, because Yuumi has been such a pivotal focus for both of these teams. You see Mishigu and Shredder run these Zeri Yuumi lanes quite frequently. I feel like Nash and Kehvo play that more facilitating style as well, picking out Ashe and Seraphine and stuff like that quite a few times as well. So I feel like that could be a point of contention. Surprisingly not. So I feel like MNM kind of geared up for a B1 Yuumi potentially here.
Could be, but then you do look at the Gangplank who is see. I saw a quiz recently where apparently one of the top presence Pickerman champions across the split was Gangplank. Not sure if you saw that, but yeah.
Learning.
It's a slow process. I'm getting there slowly but surely. But now you have to look at this champion which can thrive on an island, and it can be a big resource input too. Anything that happens with that champion ends up being so high value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can understand why in Reciprocation, Corky, we spoke about the band presence it has. It's a champion in the LFL we see. No one really has an answer to it. You see some people try and opt in for that artillery mage. Diplex actually has a really good response to it. He goes to Silas because you can use the ultimate with the missiles.
Did that from SK and the LEC as well. But we have to change the story already because we had so much normal, so much homeliness in the NLC, and then Draven and Amumu coming in from MNM. Now, we're used to seeing this from X7. Attila would pull that out. The Amumu we've seen a couple of times across the globe. It started off in the LPL, it started spreading across elsewhere. But level 1, you walk up to this lane and you die. You cannot fight that lane very easily, especially not with a Kalista. Kalista Renata is one of the few which I think can go toe-to-toe with that. And suddenly, with that, I think Riddle have quite an interesting idea for this now, because when you have GP versus Kayle in isolation and no one going top, I actually think Kayle, if you watch the Shy from the LPL, he actually wins this early lane. He goes onto that minion wave, you stack up the passive on Kayle, which gives you that extra movement speed towards enemy champions. GP walks up to contest the wave, and actually Kayle can beat them at early levels if you play it well enough. It is a lot of responsibility on Jaxplank, but he has always delivered when it's come to Riddle.
Watch this at LEC as well, and Kayle was demolishing the GP. And you're the player, Jaxplank. You know how
the best top laner in the NLC.
And GP, you know how to pilot that one. So you bring in the Kayle, you know this is a good matchup for you. Now on to the band phase, and the second one, we know Amumu is going to be a support. At least 90% sure it's going to be a support, or you reckon it can go into the jungle?
No, it has to be support. It is therefore level 1 kill threat. You have 2 charge of the bandage toss, you all in, and most bot lanes in existence really hate that. And then, of course, later into the game, you get the Curse of the Sad Mummy as well for a team fighting tool.
I feel like Softjan is a little bit starved for choice here in terms of some of the junglers getting pinched here. You can see, obviously, the Volibear being taken away from him. It's been a real hallmark for him, a real stalwart presence for him in terms of that facilitating role. Lee Sin getting taken off the board. I remember him back in the day on Trick. That was a staple of his kind of play style. And I feel like they've got to have something that bridges them, because what I see now from Riddle is very hyper-scaling. Now, I'd imagine Rakan as well for the R5, something like this, something that can leave the MF on the island, allow that facilitation, that bridge towards the end game.
And speaking of that bridge, you look at the two bans which Riddle have put through, Lee Sin and the Trundle. They are champions which normally can go into a lane early and mess things up. Now, Jarvan is the remaining one. It is a lesser option than those two picks. You are less good at extended brawls. If you are flashed away from, effectively that's the end of the trade at that point. Jarvan is much more risky for their comp, particularly when Amumu is not a champion which one likes to roam that much either. It is more about that lane presence in his current state. Not that you don't have roam presence too, but I'm looking at these now solo lanes of, Swain and Corki. You want to make that work. Jax Blank on the GP into that Kayle, and you want to make that work, and you have a very volatile jungler against the more stable early game jungler of the Volibear, who is more reliable in getting that pressure off, and the Rakan, who's better at roaming. I think Riddle, if you look at Stefan and Nash having a good game, I think this game is very much in their hands.
The adaptation from MNM is also interesting. Okay, we have a lot of early game, but we need to adapt to the late game, because Riddle are just only looking to the late game.
Yeah, I feel like, strangely enough, and Naimura can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I feel like Riddle just have a better version of MNM's draft.
Yeah. You have scaling solo lanes with a better jungler and support to impact the early game. Because Jarvan, like we said, not as reliable. Volibear, the most reliable early ganker. Amumu, not the best roamer. Rakan, probably the best roamer in the game outside of Nautilus. It feels like Riddle have a lot of what MNM want to do, but they're just more reliable with it.
So you both believe that Riddle will take this one today?
I think so.
Well, I was a believer of that from the onset, Archeron, but, for the flame.
For the flame, I would say, I don't know, as we toss it to the Costas for the first time on day 13. So Initializing Trouble, how are you doing?
Very, very well, because we've got a Draven Amumu. Oh, what a combo that is!
Okay, I'm just really excited to see Amumu, because ever since his buffs, I think it was on the 12-11, if I'm not wrong, or 12-12.
Yeah, some relatively recently, last couple patches.
So basically, his Bandits toss, if you guys remember, Amumu Misfortune was a thing last season, and that's because
Curse of the Sad Bullet
toss. Yeah, and that's because his Bandits toss had 2 charges and also cost next to no mana. Then they nerfed the Bandits toss mana to 70, and now they took it down to 30. Plus a flat 50 damage on his ultimate, level 6, very early, smaller HP bars. This is a huge power spike together with a Draven.
Absolutely. And this is a pretty interesting game in some ways, because MNM, we've seen some spectacular games and then some really not spectacular games, or spectacular in the wrong way, I suppose. But on the other side, Riddle are this second place team that didn't quite manage to get it done against JDXL, but against pretty much everyone else, they have been pretty clearly ahead of everyone else. We have to see whether they can do it again here today in our first game of day. Let's head on to the Rift.
Ooh, that was very sleek.
Thank you.
So
I didn't have anyone counting down to tell me when we were going on, by the way. I just did that, by myself.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. My innate sense of timing.
stylistically, these two teams are very different. MNM are very adamant for the early game and their team fights.
Yes.
They really like snowballing their bot lane. And the most important thing here is that Mishigu does like to tend towards his Kallistas, his Samiras, together with Shredder on something more aggressive, like the Nautilus a lot of the times. Now, Shredder in his interview said, we're really trying to stray away from the Nautilus because we kept forcing. He had a stellar performance on it. And he's like, we kept forcing it after this, and it just did not work. Now, of course, Samira and Kallista were banned, so the only other early game champion that can go into the bot lane, play aggressive, is that Draven together with Lucian. Draven was the champ of choice for Mishigu. And of course, Shredder really suits the type of champion Amumu is. You've got heavy engage,
yep,
you've got a bunch of CC, and you've got a lot of roaming potential.
Absolutely, and we're actually going to see a bit of a level 1 invade here of sorts, getting down some of those early wards into Stefan's jungle. And I don't believe there's a sweeper available right now to get rid of that ward, so that will stay down. And I did want to take that moment, really, to talk about Mishigu as well, because obviously last week, you saw he nearly got away with some serious damage on the Ezreal, couldn't quite make it work for them, but there were moments where, like, Ericsson's RE falling down and giving a massive shutdown over that kind of thing. You began to believe, and Mishigu has been one of these players who's honestly really impressed me from this league. Despite MNM only at 3 and 9, there's been some real moments from this guy.
And I feel like Mishigu, I keep saying he has 2 modes. He's either going to destroy you in the early with Kalista, Samira, Draven, or he's gonna piss chill on Ziggs and go for the late game.
Mishigu Ziggs, oh boy.
And take your towers, right? So this is the early game aggression that we even talked off the get-go. You see that Mishigu and Shredder are trying to play very aggressive. Now what we need to keep a track of in this particular game is the junglers.
Yes.
Stefan is running the Predator again. Last time he ran the Predator was versus Singularity, and he literally zoomed across the entire map, collecting summoners and collecting deaths for the enemy team. But this time Soft is also an early game aggressive jungler with Javan. You can pull some very creative level 3s, you can take flashes really easily, and then you can come back to the lane and actually cash in. Now, they're very similar on what these two champions do, but we've talked about this. Volibear does not lose to any jungler on the 1v1 if he has pressed the attack. The fact that Stefan has gone for the Predator, he's prioritized mostly ganking for his laners and getting them ahead rather than his own power.
And you look at the laners he's got, that's a Kale, that's a Corki. Hell, the Misfortune really wants the level 6 as well, despite some early pressure. Like, this Volibear is here to kind of like keep these people alive and then get things going.
This makes me so sad, by the way. There was
what do you miss?
beautifully stacked wave.
I did see it.
And there's no jungler to dive.
Not yet. It's a full clear Jarvan. Nothing like a level 3 dive quite a minute. Of course, diving at the moment is a riskier business than it once was, say, back in spring, even if you're on something like the Jarvan. And they will not be there for that crash early on. And of course, Draven can do it early on, of course, but sometimes you want to wait a little bit to get some of those stacks to really get the big gold infusion.
Yeah, and if you've looked at how X7 usually play the Draven in lane, it's not necessarily for the early levels. You actually want to make sure that your Draven stays alive. Someone will misstep, and then you're gonna cash in 1,000+ gold for 1 kill, 16 minutes or something into the game, right? So I think I would love to know how Mishigu and Shredder are going to play the Draven lane, because they have had a few back and forth so far, but I'm thinking it might probably be the safest choice to stack your Draven and then try to cash in, rather than go into a very aggressive bot lane gang.
Yeah.
Maybe Volibear's around and then you end up losing your stacks.
Speaking of Volibear, though, has actually started having a look into that topside jungle, maybe to come and aim to assist Jaxblank, who of course had a rough time of it last game against Kryze and Dan, who really punished him early on. And this time around is on the Kale, going to try and be another one of those major carry threats we know he can be. And honestly, both of these players, Kalem and Jaxblank, have been guys we put a lot of time into. And speaking of that, we may even have a little bit of a graphic to talk about. And you can see there, those are some world-beating stats for the NLC.
So this is the fun part, right? When stats come up, everyone can theorize on why the stats are like this. So they're like, okay, but Jaxblank gets so much more gold than Kalem does. Because, mind you, on the graphic, guys, they're swapped to where they're playing. So you're like, Jaxblank, 26.8% gold, 26.7% damage. So basically, for every gold he gets a
DPM,
equal amount of damage, right? But Kalem seems to be getting way less resources and doing even more damage than Jaxblank. Now, why is this? It's the fact that Kalem and MNM play more for these team fights. If you remember in the last game, he left versus X7, level 6 with his Camille, and wandered all the way towards the Dragon to catch MC off guard. So plays like this, the fact that you will see Kalem joining his team a lot more, give him a lot more damage overall. Now what Jaxblank usually does is he allows his team to have a new avenue into the game. Because we talk about team fights, we talk about 5v5 certain individual objectives, but the fact that Jaxblank can generate that pressure on a side lane, which I don't necessarily think any other team can do it as well as he does, gives Riddle a different avenue of approach.
Yeah, and this was something I know you and Nymera were kind of talking about actually before the game started, so I do want to give this a moment here because it was some sensible stuff. It's actually, never mind that, there's a double grand entrance, which is going to force a lot of damage onto Mishigu, still staying alive with a stand aside as well, keeping things down. In the mid lane, Vladdy taken to pretty low HP as well with the level 6 and the Demonic Ascension coming through, but no one does die. Might be able to finish my point as this Dragon gets started. Does look like we'll have this moment. So Kalem has a slightly lower DPM, was the theory you and Nymera had, was because basically because he's split pushing and no one wants to be near him, so he's not hitting anybody because everyone wants to stay away from him. Sorry, Jaxblank, yes. Wrong name, there you go. But like, the point is, like, he's not got as high a DPM because like people just stay away from him. They don't want to deal with him. The stats might be a little misleading on that front. Like, it's not that he's not doing damage, it's just that no one wants to be anywhere near where he is on a side lane.
Absolutely. Last time anyone wanted to have a word with him, he killed both the carries, ran away with Inhibitor. That was a fun part, and his team took Elder. So, Astralis fans, that might ring a bell. Anyway, moving forward, because we've talked about literally everyone and anyone on the map, but the man in the mid lane, Vladdy versus Chimera. I want to reiterate here how important that MNM win was over X 7 because it's a team that's sitting now on 3 and 9, but 3 of their losses have been games that they had in their hands and they threw. So Chimera is one of the crucial key points for MNM, especially onto that Swain. The way he was creating space around his AD carry, back then Mishigu onto the Kalista, the way he was closing off choke points behind walls so the enemy team doesn't have an escape. This guy created the whole team fight and the whole space to play around. And right here, you see it again. He's pushing Vladdy off of the tower. What does that net you? It nets you your first dragon. You can start stacking the map. The next one is going to be a Cloud Dragon, which means that you won't have Cloud as a soul, which means you definitely want to be stacking the map because it's going to be a juicy one coming up.
Oh, yes. Question, though, dear Georgia. Considering, as it stands, not a huge amount has happened, and you've got Corki Kale scaling away without too much going on here, particularly from Self, who was on that early game playmaker of the Java. And yes, there's still some stuff that can happen in bot lane, maybe. How much do MNM actually need to get done in this early to mid game before the kind of the level of damage Riddle will be too much to deal with?
Okay, I'd say when you see Corki and Kale, you're like, Monk RS, you know, what is he? 6, 7 out of 16 point at clock. You know? Your days are numbered.
Yes.
But from what I see here, I think it has a lot to do with the way that team fights are executed. Because yes, Corki pokes a lot, and yes, you don't necessarily have these big tanks on the side of MNM. You've got the Jarvan, who's most likely going to go full tank, and then you've got Shredder, who's on the support, doesn't have much economy, can't build a lot of tanky items really quickly. So you rely on the Jarvan to either catch a skill shot that would fall into your carries, or you rely on your own happy feet. Now, what I really like, what MNM have done here is they've locked in the Gangplank. Gangplank, really good against immobile carries. You can zone the Misfortune out. You can zone the Kale out. The fact that Kale is level 16 doesn't mean that she automatically wins the game, because if she can't walk into the fight to put down her damage,
then it's a bad time for all involved.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the fact that Gameday has been pulled. I love the fact that Chimera is playing the Swain again, which means you can actually push members away, not allow them to come through the choke point. And the fact that Soft ins on that Jarvan, creating even more space with the Amumu, I think MNM have the tools required to keep Riddle's carries away.
I think that's a pretty good read on the situation, and you're right. You know, you've got between the Gangplank Ultimate and the Cataclysm and Demonic Ascension and Curse of the Sad Mummy.
Don't get me wrong.
That's so many massive AoE circles.
Don't get me wrong. If Gale gets to free hit,
True. But in fairness, there are a lot of tools to make sure that free hitting shouldn't be happening too much. You know, like between there's a lot of AoE circles. You know, they've gone and decided they're metal fans now. They've gone to a few of those gigs and decided circle pits are where it's at in life.
I actually was watching an LCK game, I think it was yesterday, and Bro were playing
T1.
Amumu bot lane. Yes, versus T1, and they were playing Amumu bot lane. And every time anyone walked anywhere near that Amumu, they would actually insta-pop him. And I feel like you do have this potential here, because the second someone gets caught, they're all squishy. If you hit anyone but the Volibear, that person
could be a bad time.
Absolutely dies, right? Kale ult might come on top, but this person's completely out of the fight because you've chunked them down really hard. So there are tools, there are ways to play the fight. All lies on Shredder on how he's going to actually execute or find these picks in the team fights.
Absolutely, and you know, I'm very excited to see Amumu in the game a little bit more. It was my initial main in League of Legends, but the first champion I ever bought.
We're NLC pets, because you might not like Azir versus Corki, but Swain against Corki is also the same deal here.
I don't know what's on the tweets today, but we haven't got one or two of them.
Pets.
Look at that, from Parmesano at 13. What a very pretty looking cat is. Never mind the cat, we've got to talk about a tower dive instead, as Kalen is being forced away. And this one is looking like the cat's getting skinned. Jaxplank's thrown down the ultimate though and gets out alive. Divine Judgment, flash out of the Cataclysm. Jaxplank is just too clean.
Oh, that must have hurt for Caleb as well, because that flash was a little bit sussy right there last minute. But yes, Stefan and Jaxplank definitely want to be playing together. The second Jaxplank falls behind, it seems like Riddle don't have their avenue towards the side lane. They don't have that beefy carry that they want on the top side of the map. So making sure that Chaos starts scaling beforehand is going to be monumental for them. Already level 9, 7 to go.
We heard from Tom Kick in one of the early little segments as well that he believes Jaxplank is the best damn top laner in the league.
Ah, okay.
When you see plays a little bit like this, you can see why the coach has so much faith in the guy. We've brought him up a lot of times for good reason, and you give that kind of region as the package has to be burnt in mid lane as Soft comes in to attack the Corki, having just picked it up as well. That's a frustrating moment with the Dragon alive as well.
Actually, that's pretty huge, but
Yeah.
Soft has lost a lot of his HP, but he might
Gonna
lose
keep
it all.
pushing it. They're going to get the Misfortune bullet time as well. Though it's very dead. Jarvan, Regicide, indeed. The heir to the throne into Matthew is gone, but now actually the turnaround is pretty damn big as Shredder gets that Curse's Hand Mummy. In goes Stefan, but can't quite get on top of Chimera, who flashes away. It will be an additional 1-for-1, all things said and done.
Yeah,
Jungler
you're
is dead for MNM, though.
You're losing mid lane for losing jungler, the side of MNM. Chimera managed to get a kill. Rala is already completed. He's gonna go back. He's gonna TP back into the fight. But I think this Dragon will go to the side of Riddle. The fact that they still have Stefan there, the fact that Soft died, and he has to take the long way all the way from base, means that this is a pretty free walk into the pit. Now, saying this, Mishigu's Draven is still down the bot lane, and a lot of your wombo combo potential from the side of Riddle is gone, and you heavily rely on that. The Rakan ult into the Misfortune ult, into the Volibear ult is very dangerous if you don't have it to actually walk into them, and Chimera is actually back. Now he's got the boots. Shredder is also very dangerous to be around with double bandage toss on his kit. And yeah, MNM's plan is working so far. They've stacked 2 dragons. They put their Rift Herald in the mid lane as well. I'm not sure if this is going to crash, actually.
It's going to get pretty close. It's being attacked by the wave into the Cataclysm goes Vladdy, but he has to try and get out. It's a Jaxplank, though, who gets flagged and dragged. No one dies, and Soft burns the ultimate for not a lot there. The Herald didn't even charge.
Shelly died in the whole process right there. That was... I wonder what happened, because I think Soft died, and then he ran mid lane, dropped the Herald, and then
Got the Dragon, yeah. So even though he died, they still got the Dragon, yeah. But they tried to use the Herald for pressure, and kind of works, but it's like you could see some of the ideas, like your Cataclysm, maybe you've got the Corki, can flag a drag after it. Just didn't work out.
I feel like it was a little bit of a miscommunication
Yeah.
there, because you're either going to pop down the Rift Herald and then walk into the river, or you're just going to save it and possibly go on a side lane, maybe towards the bot side of the map and just drop it there for extra plates. Now, they tried to get 2 in 1. It didn't work because Riddle completely put their hands up from the Dragon and tried to defend mid lane, which I think is very important for them. Having 2 immobile carries like Corki and Kale is really difficult when you dropped the mid lane tower and you take vision around their jungle to actually push in a wave. So, also, Corki wave clears like an absolute madman. So it's really difficult to break that mid lane tower, and I feel like MNM should have put a little bit more pressure in trying to get that Shelly to bot.
Couple quick notes here. Namely, Jaxplank has gone towards the Kraken Slayer build on the Kale, so it's not going to be AP, it has gone towards that AD. Spikes a little earlier, probably scales a little less hard as far as I understand it, but that has been the option. Also going to be Chem Tank Plus to go with the Predator, obviously for the Volibear, to add a little bit more speed to your additional speed.
A little bit more speed, with speed, zoomies all around the map. Saying this though, Stefan's Volibear was massively more active in the game versus Singularity. He was going mid lane, he collected a flash, he was going back mid lane, he collected a kill, then he went towards top lane, then he went towards bot lane, so he was literally permanently all over the map. I think the fact that Soft threw the curveball off the Jarvan right there has sort of halted that assault in the early game.
Here we go, though. Mishigu with a very smart ward there
bot.
to spot out Stefan appearing at the bot side. It will force the MNM bot lane away from their tower as the whole of Riddle begin to move outside of Jaxplank, who has now hit that level 11. You can see it on the profile picture there on the mini map. Is beginning to ascend. First tower is secured. And Riddle continue to just have rough control over this game as Chimera misses that Never Mover now, might be getting ganked, but the rest of MNM are turning up as well. This is going to be a bit of a fight. The flag and drag onto Stefan, who's not going to get anything done yet. Needs to try and ult because he's taking so much damage. Nash goes in with the quickness and will not die, does Stefan, to the use of the ultimate from Draven. Misfortune with the bullet time after, and Soft still alive. But what can Kehvo do trying to get up? But there's a cannon barrage afterwards and dies to Shredder. The Amumu turnaround is real this game.
You see how difficult it is for Riddle to play the game. The gangplank ult wasn't even there to begin with. Chimera baits everyone to get towards him into Fog of War, where Soft was sitting inside a bush. And when all the CC keeps lining up, Riddle members cannot move. And right now there is just not yet enough damage to be able to burn through Stefan's Volibear. And usually this is not the target you want to go for. So if they almost executed Stefan's Volibear, imagine what happens when the bandage toss lands on any other member from the sort of Riddle. So the win cons are there. You see that Chimera, again, is a very key part of the team fight wins that so far MNM, not wins, but more like skirmishes that MNM have had so far.
Indeed, and we've got just over a minute until what would be soul point for MNM. When you called it out, would be a good soul. It's the Ocean's Kalem just taking fast quantities of damage. Divine Judgment isn't needed, but a Starfile Spellblade will secure the gangplank down so low, though. A flash plus the smite will secure the kill, but Vladdy gets that one afterwards, and you burn the flash for that, Soft, so it's still a 2-for-1.
I'm gonna say I'm not sure if it's worth to give 2 kills away and your flash just to kill Jaxblank unless he had a shutdown on him, but then again he goes towards your Jarvan, and your Jarvan isn't necessarily a carry. You don't go towards the Gold Drinker anymore, you go more tanky. You're basically like a beefy frontline for your team and somebody who creates space around your Draven to play the team fight. So the fact that MNM lose 2 members on the map, I think is very dangerous versus somebody like Riddle who are really good at macro, because the second that they have one more person on the map than you, they're going to move very quickly and take a lot of things from you. Again, Kalem right here is going to get dived by Jaxblank. You see how much damage this Kale can output, and the fact that Kalem uses Cannon Barrage to assist in the mid lane fight. He didn't have it to slow down the Kale from chasing him. Soft is going to lose his flash to kill somebody with the shield. Very flashy.
Indeed, it was. But we've got another Herald being dropped in mid. See if this one will be a little more successful than the last for MNM. Does get the charge off this time, but will not secure the tower. Down about 5 to 10% HP is Soft, looking for Nash, but Nash slippery on the Rakan and isn't going to be attacked.
Is that successful? Because they dropped it, Riddle has killed it, and now MNM will be sandwiched. Look at the position of Jaxblank coming all the way from blue buff. Look at the position of the rest of Riddle. Stefan is going to also pop the plant and know exactly the positioning. All eyes on Shredder. If he hits a Embedded Toss on somebody who's very squishy, that somebody can actually pop instantly.
No Divine Judgment quite yet for Jaxblank, and no flash, of course. This Kale is a little vulnerable as a Never Move lands onto Stefan, but Dragon being started again. Soul point for MNM if they can secure it. Look at Nash on the flank, though. They're going to try and get in, secured by Soft, and now they go for the fight. Massive use of that curse of the sad mummy, but the bullet time will delete it. That combo broken apart on opposite sides of the rift, but it still goes through. But Camera alongside Mishigu cashing in, beginning to win this fight for MNM regardless. Make it a third, and that one is soul point +3.
Nah. Chimera on Swain
Too good.
Banned globally. This guy is too freaking good on the champion, creating space for your team, zoning away 5 members, getting them kills, chasing them afterwards to make sure you shut down key members. And in all of this madness, Mishigu cashes in. He gets his first kill. We're also gonna see.
He's out of mana. He's in so much trouble here. He's got a flash. Doesn't need to use it, but the heal will come through. Just get out. Remember, he cashed in there as well, so I think
I'd love to see how much gold.
Yeah, let's have a check in this one.
Corki does a lot of damage here, putting down the poke, but Soft manages to actually secure that one kill. Shredder goes in, gets the 3-man stun, which is actually pretty huge. And I'd like to see this cashing coming in from Chimera. From Mishigu. Was that 900 something?
I think it was. It was a fairly hefty amount of gold indeed. Yet to die, been stacking up adoration all game. And yes, you got forced off that first tower, but you still get to cash in, and now you're an item ahead of your opponent.
The scary part doesn't come when Kale is 16. It comes when Chimera actually has his mythic item. When the Leandris goes down and you start taking that HP percentage off of your opponents, whilst you're also perma-slowing them, which allows your Draven to put down more auto attacks. And if anyone gets close to your Draven, you've got Cannon Barrage, you've got Jarvan ult. You just do not allow this Kale to play the game. And in that fight, Nash also had a pretty good flank that he wasn't allowed to take because he was also zoned out of the fight. So, to reply to your question,
yes,
scaling is very important and really good to have and very useful for the late game. But if you're not allowed to use it in damage terms because you're being blocked out of the fight,
indeed,
that's for you.
I will say that as you were speaking about it, Kehvo's Muramana just transformed. Vladdy's has transformed as well at this point, and we've just got a Phantom Dancer in on Jaxblank. So there are now 2 items on these pretty scary wombo combo players. So it's not like Riddle are out of this right now, but MNM have done a very good job of getting themselves into a very dangerous position. Only 1,000 gold or so between it, if that, and about 2.5 minutes until an Ocean Soul fight. I feel like MNM are very willing to start taking.
Yeah, level 14 on the Kale as well. The level 16 is very realistic at this point. Only 20 minutes in. Only 2 more levels to go for Jaxplank's Kale. And as you can see, the entire team is shadowing him. They're playing towards the bot side of the map. Predator is also going to give away that Stefan is playing towards the bot side of the map. And of course, MNM mostly want to play around Chimera. Chimera right now is not one champion. He's playing 2 champions. That's how huge he is. And because Caleb is playing the Gangplank, he can actually assist on a fight from super far away, having the global. Soft is actually going to start the Baron.
Okay.
Riddle have no idea. They might go and check right now, and it's not going down very fast. So he's going to lose a lot of HP.
Coming over as well here. Here with the rockets. I think you've just got to back away from this. That's probably a little bold.
I think the second you get spotted and you've lost some HP, you actually need to leave instantly. The fact that MNM did not instantly leave the pit, I think is going to give Riddle a chance to poke down that mid lane tower even more.
Leandri is now complete for camera. You called it out. It's in, it's available, and the Demonic Ascension is going to burn even more at this point. It turns out people from that particular region of the Afterlife are used to dealing with fire, apparently. Got ourselves a minute or so until the Ocean Dragon. Got ourselves a Baron that's alive and not quite able to be started properly by MNM, but is a potential target. And I need to know, what on earth are we looking at coming into this fight? Because it's going to get spicy one way or another.
If we look towards the bot quadrant of the jungle from MNM, you will see that it's been lit up in red. Currently, I can't see because my monitor just turned off. But as you guys will be able to see, it's lit up in red. A few of the wards have actually gone down right now, but Riddle have a pretty good setup to actually walk inside this river. They've got a bunch of control wards towards the bot side of the map because Soul is coming up for MNM. When you have Corki in your team, you definitely don't want to be giving Ocean Soul away to your opponents because they're going to be healing that poke much quicker, which means that your Corki cannot be that menace to push you out of a fight as easily. Now, this is going to be a proper 5v5. Look at the levels. No level 16 yet on the Jaxplank. Level 14 onto Chimera versus level 13 for Vladis Corki.
Soft tries to get onto Kehvo, but can't quite make it work. He's a little short with the flag and drag now. The characters have gone through, but it just keeps Soft into that pit flash for the thundering smash. And Stefan secures Soft, jungler down before the Soul fight even begins.
Oh, unfortunately for MNM, this is the Soft special. He does tend to overextend a little bit in river, especially when there is an objective they want to go for, but this was not the river of MNM to enter. They have absolutely no vision. They have not split the map. They have not actually pushed in mid lane to be able to enter the river from whatever direction they want to, and it was literally Soft versus the world. If his team follows up there, everyone dies. They will lose Dragon and they will lose Baron. So MNM decides, you know what, we're going to sacrifice our jungler right there and we're going to try to get that Soul in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. But again, I'm a little bit disappointed because I've seen Soft do this a few too many times where he will overextend in a team fight, he will go down first, and this is where you lose your right to contest a neutral objective because you lose your smite.
Indeed, one level off the doomsday moment for this Kale as well. Currently very close to that. Package is available as well for Corki, so pretty close to max power right now for Riddle, and they are in a pretty good position to try and fight for that, especially considering they stalled off that Ocean Soul with the pick onto Soft. Of course, this game still very playable, but I feel like Riddle at this moment kind of got that just slight edge.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that they've won themselves another 5 minutes. We mentioned Jaxplank's Kale was not level 16 in that fight. Well, guess what? Probably in the next one, she will most likely be level 16. You're going to have 3 points into your ultimate, and you're going to be an absolute beast with your auto attacks from leveling up from the passive. So we talked about all the zoning tools that MNM have in their pockets. And if they don't use them right, yes, the scaling is going to come through. Yes, the poke is going to come through from the Corki as well. And Riddle will have the upper hand.
It's been a bit of an odd affair, this game. It feels that sometimes Riddle have had the advantage, and you see these fights where MNM suddenly swing it back with the big wombo combos, and we're left with a game, as you've kind of stated, that yes, there's a little Riddle favor, but you just can't count MNM out, especially when the likes of Kemmer, as you said, is on this swing. He's done notoriously nasty things on Calem's on that the Gangplank. I said because he's versus Jaxplank. Exactly. Gangplank versus Jaxplank. It's screwing with my head apparently. But there you go. The point still stands that this is a game that is so very winnable by either side.
Ooh. Also, really important to mention here, Calem has not gone for the traditional Trinity Force build.
No, it's the Prowler's
He's gone for the, if I hit you with a barrel, you lose 80% of your HP build. And Soft, yet again, very deep inside his jungle, enemy jungle, trying to go for that red buff, knows that Jaxplank is bot side of the map, knows that Corki is pushing towards the top side. But again, knowing what happened in the previous fight where Soft overextend, his team can't follow, it is a little bit scary. Level 16, Monka W onto that KO.
It's in.
Package is also up, which means in 2.5 minutes, when the next dragon comes up, when Ocean Soul is going to be on the line for MNM, Vladdy can go back to base, pick up the package, and be a nuisance.
The air raid sirens are indeed sounding. Level 16 on the KO, as you mentioned. Package available for the Corki, as you mentioned. That means this next dragon fight, or even the Baron fight in 2 minutes or so, set to be absolutely monstrous. Infinity edging for Kale as well to make that even more deadly.
Yeah, this is going to be a slight problem because Riddle are going to activate their trap card. What is Riddle's trap card?
Is it Man-Eater Bug?
No, it's the fact. It's the fact that they can actually split push and create a win condition through Jaxplank yet again. The fact that they focused so much in his lane in the early game, got the Gale ahead, gave him a lot of that XP and gold lead from the kills, from the early towers, from the early tower platings. They have created themselves a beast on the side lane that will require more than 1, 2, maybe 3 people to try and kill Jaxplank. What happens when you send 3 people to take down Jaxplank? Riddle take over the entire map. The Baron, which is really fast because you've got Corki, Volt, Baron's Fortune. You can take away their soul from MNM so they don't get soul for themselves, which is Ocean and very important for themselves versus the Corki. Or you focus into team fight in 5 versus 4, and Jaxplank ends the game from a side lane.
If we can keep an eye quickly before we hit towards another team fight, a look at the gold, because I'd be interested to see where the discrepancies are. Yep, top side, a little bit of a difference, and it's a little bit more of a MNM favor just about towards that mid and bot, but understandably, Jaxplank has been
Don't make it a big deal.
just 3,000 gold ahead on a Kale.
An item.
Holy moly. That is a very scary Kale that's edging towards a Flame Horizon, about 9 CS away from that 100 CS discrepancy between the two top laners as well. Jaxplank continue to prove why he is a menace in a side lane, and 30 seconds till an Ocean Drake.
Now, how do MNM approach this? Because I think most importantly, you need to shove in that mid lane wave and try to take control deep into Riddle's jungle. You need to see where the carries are coming from, possibly catch them off guard. You see that Vladdy went back, as we mentioned, took the package so he can have it for this Ocean Soul fight. Now, look at all of these
so many wards.
Jaxplank has everywhere he wants to TP. He's going to actually TP with his team, and MNM are the first ones in this river. Can they keep track of Nash, though? Because Nash had a pretty good flank last time, got zoned out. Predator's going to be popped by Stefan, possibly trying to see if he can force a flash or an ability out of anyone, and MNM are first in the pit.
Dragon's been started by Mishigu, but in goes Nash into the bullet time! Shredder's shredded! And now they're going to try and turn his camera. Demonically ascends, but goes golden to try and buy himself some time on the other side. Mishigu gets another kill. The jungle says Vladdy eats a Prowler's called barrel to the face and disappears, but now Jaxplank is unleashing, and this angel ain't happy. It's an angel not of mercy, but of death, and there ain't no lamb's blood on these doors. Riddle secure themselves another dragon.
Really well done fight right there from Riddle. I have to give props to Chimera because did a fantastic job, but 1 versus 3, when you've got a Kale on your butt, there's only so much you can do. You saw it yourself. Level 17 on Jaxplank's Kale, completely unleashed. The second you allow him to put down the DPS, he's going to melt members away. And the fact that Riddle were actually able to split open that fight, as Sophie's trying to go for
There's
it.
no smite here, so this could get potentially
Very
quite
low.
tricky. And there's a teleport coming through as well. I don't know about this, Riddle. This feels like a flip you don't need to take. Kalem's here as well, and Jaxplan's got no flash. He's in so much danger. They've got no... This is going to be a disaster. It's going to be an absolute disaster. In they go, and it's taken away! Divine Judgment comes through, trying to turn this around as Kale does get one, but will now fall. Vladdy misses the rocket. Camera demonically ascends, trying to never move that Corki back in. And it's just an absolute mess in the Baron pit. And it's Riddle's ship that is scuppered there.
No freaking way they allow Soph in the pit. They used Nash to try and track him around. They had wards to try and track him around, and that still they allow him to get inside the pit. You see that Kehvo has not used yet his rain right there. He was gonna use it there, but it's half in the pit and it's half out of the pit. It doesn't stop Javan from diving in, and by that time, we mentioned how long the team fights run. Everybody's back alive. GP TP's in, Chimera on the Swain TP's in. They will secure themselves the Baron on 3 members.
And that lets MNM back into the game a little bit. It kind of felt after that last fight it was going to be a bit of a Riddle swing again, but Shredder lands a key bandage toss, and suddenly they get back into this game, they get the Baron, and they've got time to start shoving in and getting some more of these
Also,
towers.
really quickly, the fight that we saw around the Ocean Soul Dragon, Mishigu cashed in again.
He did.
An entire item above Kehvo right now, who is on a misfortune. Who's mainly, yes, a damage tool, but mainly a zoning tool with the ultimate. So again, MNM yet again find themselves on the lead. If you can manage to keep Jaxplank's Kale away from the fight, you can win. Now, with all of these bound up minions pushing in, they can actually focus on the 4-for-1, 4-and-1. Chimera is very strong on his own on the Swain, but Stefan's looking
Stefan
for
going in, they're gonna try and go to Mishigu. Storm never dead! Jaxplank gets it, Kale gonna try to just what a massive barrel chain gets two. Shredder goes golden, survives the bullet time, and Kalem gets vengeance.
We mentioned this is a pop Gangplank build. This is not a Trinity Force build, which means you get hit by a barrel, you get 80% of your HP taken away. Chimera fancies a 1v1
Be a little bit
with
careful.
Scale, but I don't know if that's exactly what you need right here. Nevertheless, this is a positive for Riddle, because even though this Gangplank took down 2 members, yes, you got 2 kills, but that's already level 17 Gangplank, and pairing it up with a Kale will always be stronger in a team fight. Because that's not necessarily a team fight build Gangplank. It's if I hit you with 1 barrel, I will kill you.
There's no utility in that. It's pure, I will murder you, yeah. There's Infinity Edge to really top off that.
So, yes, I lost my point, but yes.
The point, I think, stands. Kalem is here to basically press E and Q and blow someone up. He's done a pretty good job of that so far, and despite being at least a fair way behind in terms of the CS, everything else has been pretty damn dangerous on this Gangplank.
What I was trying to say is that they delayed the Baron buff siege. They did not take mid lane tower until now, where they don't have the Baron buff anymore, and they did not take bot lane tower either. And there's a minute until the Dragon. Baron buff will no longer be a factor up to that point, which means MNM have to manage their own waves. As you can see, Jaxman will be permanently pushing the top side of the map because he does have the teleport up and available for him to join the fight. The bot side
does try and get onto Stefan, but he's just got a bit ult out of there. Stormbringer will get him out to save as Mishigu absolutely eviscerated down to about 50 HP, if that. A flash onto camera to try and get a hold of him. There is no stopwatch available to the Swain, which means he's vulnerable. He can heal as best he can. Shredder goes in for that curse of the sad mummy, but the only sadness right now is his friends and family that are non-existent and they won't turn up to his funeral. He's dead again in this game.
And everyone's HP bars are very low. MNM have to actually back out and wait another 5 minutes if they want to go for that soul point. And again, Solve with the overreach. Yes, you see Jaxplank Scale on the side lane, but you cannot overreach.
They're just going to get onto him. Kalem is going to be dead to right shut down into whose hands? Of course, it's Jaxplank's.
Okay, this is getting a little bit grim, because now Riddle are gonna be on Soul Point as well. So from now on, yes, it's gonna be 5 minutes until Soul for each of the teams, but this time MNM cannot say, okay guys, we can walk out if this fight does not benefit us. And back to back, we've had Soul overreach a fight, lose a bunch of his HP. Right there was Mishigu lose a lot of the HP. Riddle turn it upon them, take more members down. And
Vladdy?
A little bit too deep there.
It was pretty aggressive. He's still being tanked up by the tower. He's going to take another tower shot. In fact, is he just going to die? Not quite. Does have a shield there, but that was most of his HP bar there to about 5 turret shots. The inhibitor turret, though, does fall, and they will secure that and back away. So nothing truly lost there, apart from a little bit of sweat on my brow.
So you know what happens when the game reaches 35 minutes? The death timers are extremely high.
They might be.
There is a Baron that's coming up in 50 seconds time. And at this point, I don't think it matters much who's gonna take the Baron, because whoever contests, whichever team loses that fight, the other team will most likely be able to end the game. Not most likely. If you look at the bot side of the map, there's an inhibitor open for the side of Riddle. If they stick Jaxplank there, they can actually play for the side lane condition win that we mentioned. So Riddle can keep playing 4 versus 5 or even try to go for a steal while Jaxplank tries to end the game from the side lane.
How do you stop this girl? Flash, ult, stopwatch, level 18, 4 items.
We're gonna need a bunch of people there.
And I don't know whether you can afford it with the Baron spawning in 20 seconds. This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment. A catch, 22 of sorts. At 35 minutes into the game, they're going to bring down a few members, and they've decided to make a call as Jaxplank flashes away, but the jungler not there. Might give an opportunity for Riddle to set up.
That was very worth it, because yes, Riddle are going to set up for this fight, but 1, it stops Jaxplank's siege, and 2, it takes takes his flash away. We mentioned all of the CC tools, zoning tools that they have, the Cannon Barrage, the Mummy ultimate, all of these big spacing ults that can keep Jaxplank away, and now he can't flash on top of. So one barrel hits accidentally onto Jaxplank, this is your Kale pretty much out of the fight.
Into the Baron pit go MNM, looking to try and get some control here as Vladdy. Now himself at 4 items with a stopwatch to boot. A dangerous opponent to try and sit in the Baron pit against, because he will just hit you with rockets and try and match Kalem's ability to poke and delete people's health bars. As Shredder misses the bounty shot, flash for the curses, Mummy misses, and now the Amumu being left out to dry, eviscerated between the Kale and the Misfortune. Ain't that apt name for the AD carry?
Oh, and now MNM are put in a position where they actually have to 4 versus 5. If Riddle take this Baron, they're gonna stick Jaxplank on a side lane, they're gonna use the buff 1 and 4, but Soft might have something to say because he stole the previous one, maybe he can steal that one too.
Cannon Barrage comes down, the bullet time, zones Kalem away, takes him down about half HP, but an orange will make him at least partially K. No trip to the hospital required quite yet as Nash slowed down, looking for the quickness though. Will get taken up by Soft, but flashes in. Mishigu taking so down low, but has got a stopwatch, but will he die? He does indeed! Draven's dead, but what can Kehvo do at the back end of it? Noxus still rises! Soft dead though at the back end of it, and Kehvo has to get out of that essentially as Vladdy will try and zone off both solo laners of MNM, and Riddle win the fight.
Keep track of the death timers. Shredder died, he's back up, he's sprinting it towards that Baron, but Vladdy is keeping 2 members at bay. And Chimera and Kalem actually finds him, but Chimera is the one who finds a rocket to the face, and they have to actually back off. This is huge. 1 minute and 35 seconds for Ocean Soul for both of these teams. MNM are definitely gonna want to take this one because they got all 3 first ones, and again you see MNM here are trying for the 4 versus 5, and every single time Stefan's Predator plus Chemtag have found the target, which is Mishigu. Once you delete the Draven, you have absolutely no damage apart from the Gangplank. Chimera's build is mainly for sustain. He's building tank, he's got a Frozen Heart, he's got a Force of Nature, he's got a Paralyze. It's not heavy AP.
I hate to bring it up, but how many times have we seen MNM in the mid and late games fail the clutch
Okay, at least this time it wasn't a 10k gold lead for them.
No, but it makes me nervous because there is no 10k gold lead. It's a double deficit against some of these mighty late game monsters. And it makes me nervous because I've seen MNM fail in these situations a few times before. They need to break that curse. They need to come in calm and collected because it's 35 seconds. And if they fail this, game's over.
Yeah, I think they heavily rely on Shredder to either find a flash ult, which didn't work out, or find a bandage toss. Once one of the members from Riddle are actually stunned in place, you do have the tools to pop them 1 barrel into Dravenhold, and somebody will die and get executed. 10 seconds. This is the fight we're talking about. They're both on it.
Going in, curse the Samami! Into 4! Alongside the Cannon Barrage, but no one is dead quite yet. Still going down, that will be a dead Nash in turn. Gonna try and keep alive as Jaxplank. Getting it deleted, he's dead. The Kale is gone. And MNM, past results be damned. Find it until the rocket got through for a double? No way, not like this. MNM, you won the fight. They're going golden. Riddle, surely not like this. Not in this situation. Soft goes down. And Riddle, despite losing 2, are still gonna win the fight in the game. No, not again, not like this.
Kehvo with the triple kill to finish the deal. We said maybe he's not the main damage dealer, but when he's all you've got left together with the Corki, it's enough. Volibear, Corki, and Misfortune can chase you down. They have a wave down bot. They have the Baron buff. Holy Riddle.
And MNM, once again, it's despair. The clutch moment eludes them once more, and the 16-year-old mid laner from Greece finds a rocket for 2 that pierces the hearts of MNM. Riddle moved to 10 and 3.
That was absolutely insane. I think, man, MNM are going to be kicking themselves. These are 4 games that have been so close that they have met their win conditions and they just cannot put the last nail on the coffin to solidify the deal. And I feel like Riddle, if you allow them that space for the clutch moments, everyone's going to come alive. And even though I know we don't mention Kehvo's name enough, he always gets the job done.
I cannot believe it happened again. MNM, I don't know what god or deity or something you have pissed off, but another game that is lost in the clutchest of moments. We'll throw it to the desk, because I'll take it from here.
Thank you so much. Another victory for Riddle. Not a clean one, though, versus MNM, but a win nonetheless.
I really, really feel for MNM, because at this point, you've actually looked like a really good team. And about half of all your games you've played against the top teams, you know, like, and by half of that, I mean, like, half of each game. You know, like, half of each game, it feels like they're in control. They're making big plays. The team fights are working out for them somehow. But they haven't managed to capitalize on the opportunity. They've managed to hard fight for them.
They're the Harvey Dent of the league, aren't they, really? Two-faced, completely. I feel like you've got an MNM that really can just show...
You want to know how I got this scoreline?
I can tell you, Nightmare. They got that scoreline by... It feels like, to me, this game is so in their control on Soul Point, and then it's just an uncharacteristic mistake that leads them to just... I mean, we were calling it in the green room, we were saying, this is a real pivotal moment, because you felt like they needed to play for that Soul, get the Elder, and then blow the game in through that.
Yeah, I feel like the reason, so again, like I think that Soul Point was huge. I feel like the reason that Soul Point was important was because of what happened in top lane early. Now, we do have a clip of this, I believe, of, well, what happened early, because we told this from the draft. It felt like top lane 2v2 was going to be hugely important between the top laners and the junglers of both teams, and it was Jax Plank. Of course, it was Jax Plank who was really starting to thrive in this matchup. We've seen the likes of the Shy, we keep calling them out, for winning this matchup. And while Soft does come up and was there at the right timing, it just wasn't enough at that point. And once this happens, you're losing waves to tower, you're getting behind an XP, Kayle is getting ahead, Kayle has free access to farm, you're not zoning them off everything, which means you are inevitably going to lose the side lane after that point, which then leads into, you gotta have Soul to stop that side lane pressure.
And this was a race to the late game, and if you have the Kayle getting empowered, getting more gold than she should, this is going to be really complicated, even though the Draven got the cash in as well. That is really important for the team of MNM, but that wasn't enough, was it?
I mean, I feel like if you're a fan of MNM, you've got to be like George Michael. You've got to have faith, and I'm running out of faith.
Never going to dance again as well, or?
Well, you know, those guilty side lanes, they've got no rhythm, and they're just not coordinated enough for me. And really, just going forward from that, we spoke about the Draven shutdown there. That was a point at which they had to propel, and you saw them propelling, but the propellers fell off, and we keep talking about plane crashes.
Well, you do, for some reason.
I've had a traumatic experience with a plane crash.
Flew in today. We're actually joined by the
Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
I see Barons that have been stolen.
Riddle is a team that I'm just... and we should look into that play of the Baron, where they could actually get the Soul. It wouldn't be the Soul effect, but it's more about the Elder race.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? Because it did come down to these big objectives. Of course, we saw that Baron later into the game. This is actually going to be the first attempt at Soul. Because it felt like actually for MNM, it wasn't just about getting Soul. It was about actually, you got to get the Elder after that point. The fact that they had an opportunity in this particular one, they over-engaged, they were a little bit impatient. That threw away one. Then you go into the second one, and you notice how difficult the game gets after that point. I mean, you are against that Kayle, you're against that Corki. You can see what happens when you do flub these very important moments.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, to be honest, just to pick up from what you're saying. I mean, we were speaking about how important those vision lines were in terms of it's so difficult for MNM to kind of walk into a lot of these dark areas. You see Soft
like
there.
here, yeah.
Exactly. This is a really good example of this. Riddle just able to kind of challenge even the throne that they built themselves. The quickness comes in from Nash, great flash, great combo here. And from this point onwards, it's a turnaround slightly in the sense that Mishigu gets Stefan here.
And Vladdy is in no man's land.
Yeah, Vladdy is in no man's land, but there's just no real way to play around this at a certain point. At a certain point, it's like we said in the pre-game Nightmare, Riddle's got a better version of MNM's draft.
Riddle are really intelligent. The idea that, okay, they're going to play for the Soul, for the Elder, so might as well push the Wound as soon as they do so. So every single time they wanted to go and attempt to get the Soul, that was the cue card for Riddle. Okay, let's set up the vision. And MNM never found an answer to that one as well.
No, and you know, they did have a couple of really good late game performances recently. It did just feel like the tools weren't there for the job this time around. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they had an option to maybe shut down top lane. They failed at that. They had an option to maybe play around Soul and then actually really the Elder after that point. They failed at that too. It felt like they understood part of what they wanted to get into, but some key execution errors left them lacking.
Okay, Riddle wins this one, and I want to jump into the interviews right away as Kehvo is the one waiting for us. Hello, welcome back to the interview segment. Another victory for you guys. And how are you doing after this game? Because you brought in the MF versus the Draven. Can you guide me through that one?
Yeah, I mean, the AD pool was pretty pinched, and we didn't expect them to pick Draven, so I was like, yeah, it's like MF is good answer to it, so we just went for MF Rakan, and it worked out fine.
And can you tell me something? Even though you won this game, you're not closer to the first plot. You're actually closer to the third one. How nervous is Riddle knowing that two teams can jump into your spot and steal it away as we're approaching the playoffs?
I mean, yeah, the race for second place is really close. Like, we have important matches coming against Dusty and Astralis, so we're just looking to beat them and secure second place for ourselves.
Okay.
So jumping into what you were just saying about that, not expecting the Draven to be locked in. We talked a lot about the top laners in this matchup, but coming into the draft, and there's a fly right on my face. That's actually really annoying. So it does feel like when you lock in champions like Gangplank, typically across the world, we've seen actually that lane left on an island at that point. What was it like in terms of adapting to actually the difference in where resources would have to be allocated across the map in this lane, in this game, rather?
I mean, usually like you want to focus around the Draven lane, but I feel like actually there was not that much action in the bot lane. So yeah, we were just like free scaling in bot, and Draven really didn't get ahead in the early game. And then we had good matchup in the top, like Kale versus Gangplank. And yeah, I mean, Jaxplank, he got really fed and became a monster.
Pretty good at League of Legends.
Took over.
And I would say you got the reading of this game really well done from you guys. You didn't allow the Draven to cash in on the line. You were careful enough. And then you jump into the Baron, and there's some sort of interesting play there where you try to do the Baron with no smite. And I can see that smile on your face right now. And my question to you right now is, do you believe Riddle is at the point where you can safely say, I'm the second tier team in NLC, I'm the second seed? Or do you believe there's still work to be done to actually secure the second seed and be closer to the first one?
I mean, for sure, like, we want to believe that we're the second team, and I think we can take down any team in the league. Like, yeah, we're looking to secure at least EU Masters and maybe even win the splits.
Okay, so you believe that you can go into playoffs and take down JDXL without you doing
I sure hope so.
Okay, let's see what happens. I'm not going to take any sides, so thank you so much for this interview. And congratulations on this one. Have a nice one.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
I'm sorry, what?
Those are fine words from Kehvo there.
That is a lot, yeah.
It should be. I mean, this was not a clean game, but once again, like, we see how clutch this team has managed to be. And I'm a little bit of a broken record at this point. It felt like in spring they had to do it, in summer they're doing it because they can. This was a bit more of a, yeah, we kind of have to play our ways out of this one, lads. It was a bit of a weird moment with that Baron, but the execution of this team is incredibly high level for our ERL.
I would say this is a weird take. I enjoy them screwing up the Baron.
Oh, it's
because it allowed me to
entertainment.
see Riddle play from behind. And this is something that we don't usually get to see, and they played really well.
I think in the essence of the fact that Wimbledon's just gone on and just concluded, we had to get a bit of back and forth, bit of a rally. So it's nice to see Riddle do that.
Wait, imagine if you literally just like, you come out of, like, imagine what happens in spring. You have JDXL, X7, and Bifrost tied up at the top, and then they just get rackets out and they play like a tiebreak point. That's it. That's on you. That's how we tiebreak NLC now. It's actually just for tennis.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
That would be a deja vu. As we jump into the second interview of the day, it's going to be Mishigu on MNM side. I was about to jump in, but he left. No, he got disconnected, so we'll get him soon enough. And this is a player that we constantly talk about. Obviously, we have Kalem that deals a lot of damage on the sidelines with no amount of gold as well, by the way. And Mishigu. Should they play more for Mishigu? How can you save MNM right now? From your analyst points of view, how can you save them? Hit me.
I feel like he's very much a shining star and a beacon of light. He puts on these individual performances. But I don't know where the answer has to come from for MNM, because I feel like you can pivot attention, you can pivot resources towards him, but you then suffer and hemorrhage a lot of advantages on the top side. And we saw that today as well. Even despite resources being put towards top, Riddle just got the best of them.
Well, he's back with us on the interview. Might as well make that question for Mishigu himself. Welcome back to the interview, Mishigu. I know,
thank you.
I know you're not feeling good right now because...
Of course I'm feeling good. What is it?
Feeling good?
Yeah. You know, I played Draven, and, you know, I just gotta play like a complete crackhead, you know? Listening to, you know, the bang music, you know, sitting like this playing. crazy. It's crazy.
I
So
missed
actually,
you,
you
mate.
see like the pixels on the screen. That's actually just the subwoofers affecting his video.
Yeah.
You're blasting music back
The
at
room
home.
is vibrating so much right now. Like, yeah.
Well, I guess my question then would be, leading on from this, obviously in the spirit of Z's, in the spirit of hardstyle music, is MNM going to make it, bruh?
I mean, I'm doing my best. I think the game today was really close. We just, lose on some minor details. We should get the soul. If we get the soul fight and we win it, then, in my opinion, we should win the game. But it's just like minor details, and I mean, we keep working on it. I think there's still hope, and of course, I'm still working on my champ pool, and I think it's a really nice champ pool. They banned 3 of my champs, and then I picked Draven, and they're like stun locked because they're like so confused. Like, what the fuck? This guy plays everything. Like.
Now, my question for you, now that you talked about will MNM be able to make it, we were making that question on the previous split for Astralis. It seems like you guys are going through the same issues as Astralis. You guys got the game, you got the lead, something happens, you lose it. What, in your eyes, would be necessary for the team right now to be able to make it, like to get the next step? What do you feel is missing out in MNM?
Well, today I think it was mainly mechanical things, or just being a bit impatient. So I think we have the game plan, and like we knew what we wanted to do, but then someone gets a bit impatient, and I mean, every small mistake is like a big difference when you play comps like we do, right? Because we can't just wait and get outscaled, right? Because they pick scaling and they pray that we throw the game ourselves, right? Which we kind of do sometimes, but I think
Continue.
as long as we play good, it should be fine. Like in the X7 games, I feel like we played really good mechanically. Everyone is on the same page, and it looks kind of good. I mean, a couple of mistakes, obviously. It's hard to play perfect, but if you play well enough, then yeah, I think we can win like the game today if we just put that little extra bit in. So as long as everyone keep working hard, no problem.
And let's be honest, when you guys click, you can take down giants like X7 and all that. So it's a small issue. Let's see if you guys can work it out before playoffs. And I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, Mishigu. Thank you so
you
much.
too, man. Have a good one.
Playing aggressive, man. Keep
Bye-bye.
playing aggressive.
You're playing the hard base.
Yeah, I mean, you need the base. You need the base.
He just walks into us, bow, and flies off into the distance.
So only a small tweak to get MNM back on track. That is good news, I would say.
That kind of aligns with what I think. I do think it's more an execution and more in the fine details. I would say it's a bit more than a small tweak. I think it isn't just like 1 or 2 small things that go wrong. I think there are multiple things going wrong in terms of the way you're approaching, engaging important objective fights. We've seen a couple of times now that that's really not quite been on point. And that can be quite a difficult thing to address. But while I will agree, it's not like a whole overhaul they need to do. It is in the fine details.
What about you, Jake? I know you're going to hit me with another quote, but yeah.
I'm not going to hit you with a quote.
Oh.
I'm going to hit you with hope. I think that's a big word.
Ow! Hope!
Ow. Hope right in the face. And MNM, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know what to do, Archeron.
Well, I can tell you what I
love them.
know, that we're going to see the standings right now to understand how this affected the standings so far. Riddle are still in second place, a little bit further from Dusty and Astralis, unless they win today. And MNM are now in, well, second to last at this point. So if Nuriki loses the next one, it's going to be the first victory for Singularity. And that's a way to gain some distance.
Either way, that game that we see between Singularity and Nariki is going to be huge for relegation implications. Of course, reminder to everyone there that between spring and summer, we didn't have a relegation or promotion period. We do get that at the end of the year. 2 teams potentially going to be on the table. Of course, our bottom 2 teams are going to be facing up against a couple of teams from Div 2 as well, and we have had a lot of quotes about how strong those Div 2 teams are. If you drop a stupid game at this point, that can be horrific for you.
Can I say something controversial?
Do it.
None of these Div 2 teams beat MNM in a best of 5. They beat Singularity, I think, but I don't think any of them beat MNM.
Would they beat Nariki if they take a win here and pull ahead of MNM?
That's a good question. That's a good question, Alex. Let me think about that. Just
I'll let you think about that as we move on to the next one. And this is an